Grand evening, everyone. It is Sunday, January 18th, 2026. It is 1900 hours and 45 minutes in the evening, Central Standard Time. Here, where I am staying at a temporary location in Center Point, Alabama. Okay, so we have a lot of massive breaking news, historic escalations, and logistical deployments and movements and actions that have been taken by the U.S. nuclear forces recently on the primary nuclear war frequency and the others. There's also been a lot of over the horizon radar activity on those same frequencies. So, we are going to talk about quite a few things here tonight. So I reposted this all here. Once again, these are initially live stream recordings that are posted to my YouTube channel in the live section of my YouTube channel. Okay. So recently, about 3 days ago, Iranian security forces have shot and unalived a Canadian citizen in Tehran. The Canadian foreign minister has confirmed. It was also from Terror Alarm. It's another uh, great source for information related like that to that. So the Iranian security forces have unalived a Canadian citizen in the capital of Iran, which is Tehran. Things have gotten so massively, chaotically out of control, and it's nearly anarchy in Minnesota, where these protests that they started as are have been taking place, which have now escalated into full-blown riots and have gotten quite violent. They are protesting the president, war, and the ICE immigration enforcement agents and federal agents there that are doing the mass deportations. So, due to that and more now, which we may also get into, this is from the leading report. President Trump is threatening to invoke the Insurrection Act in Minnesota due to the violence, aggression, the riots now that are occurring in Minnesota, especially more than any other place in this country where these same riots are. So, outside of that, which we may return to, there are massive amounts, as it says here from Eric Dowdery, uh, of Albertans in Canada. They formed a massive line, a huge line, to sign a petition to secede from Canada and potentially become the 51st state after gaining their independence. So Alberta may potentially become the 51st state. That's quite surprising. This has gained a lot of traction. It has become very possible for that to be the accurate outcome. So we'll see what happens with that. It's interesting other news there. Now, news on Greenland. In similar news, the Greenland deal is expected to happen. It says here also from the leading report. Greenland deal will happen, says Special Envoy to Greenland Jeff Landry. So it is very likely to happen now. A civil deal with Greenland to buy the country. Accidentally clicked on a couple things there. Um, so it will not likely be a military deployment and a war over Greenland now. It'll likely be bought, much like Alaska was bought probably close to 200 years ago. And there's a deal that's going on. So we are very likely going to see Greenland bought and annexed by the United States. Then also in other news, this is quite a mix here. It was RFK Jr.'s birthday. He's the Health and Human Services Secretary. He had a steak instead of a birthday cake, which that's likely historic in itself. It's not likely any HHS secretary had a steak for their birthday dinner instead of a birthday cake. And here we go here, more confirmation about the US doing strikes on Iran, an attack on Iran. It's not going to be just a strike, it's going to be a full-blown attack that will lead to total war with Iran. Iran is in a weakened state now due to all of those riots and unrest that is going on there. The Iranian revolutionaries, which that is accurately what they are taking back their country from the Islamic regime there in Iran. So it says U.S. officials say attack on Iran is inevitable. Senior U.S. officials told Israel's Channel 12 that a military strike against Iran is now considered inevitable, describing it as a matter of timing rather than a possibility, and that Washington is actively preparing for action. So, in this video here, this is, I think, a stealth bomber being escorted by maybe F-22s. Looks like F-22s. Also, stealth fighter jets. That's very interesting. So, the attack on Iran is now inevitable. That's further confirmation. I've been seeing that quite a few times now. It is only a matter of time for the attack on Iran. That will get Russia, especially, much more involved. The Chinese, I heard the Chinese have flown aircraft into their airspace already during these riots that turned into a revolution in Iran. So the Chinese and the Russians, they cannot lose Iran. I mean, if they do, they're massively exposed, much more vulnerable. Then they lose all of the oil and resources, things like drones that they get from there. It's a very big deal. Their strategic position and resources of Iran. Then we have this here. Gold has now reached a new all-time high of $4,650 an ounce. Price of gold is now higher than ever before. It is also a measure of social chaos and chaos overall and anarchy throughout the world. When the price of gold goes so high, especially that it is going even higher, it is a telltale sign that SHTF and World War III and the like are going to massively escalate and SHTF is very imminent. I do believe it is. It could be any day now because of what the U.S. has been doing with those oil tankers coming out of Venezuela. They've been seizing the oil tankers, even with Russian flags um, and Russian destinations. And then we have the Iranian situation going on, and even the Taiwan situation. The U.S. is supporting Taiwan by sending them billions of dollars of weapons and equipment already so they could prepare for when the Chinese invade Taiwan, likely later this year. Then, on top of that, we have the price of silver. It has also soared to an all time high, which for silver, it is $94 an ounce for the first time in history, in modern history. The price of silver is almost $100 an ounce. Same situation when it comes to gold and silver, it is the same. And we have this here once again from the leading report. Multiple protesters, as they keep calling them, these rioters now, across Minneapolis are armed and standing guard against ICE. The ICE agents, those immigration customs enforcement officers, from what I understand, if I remember correctly, that's what it stands for. So those protesters, those rioters, for the most part, they are armed and very likely preparing to engage the federal agents. That's how tense it is in Minneapolis. And that is just one of 3 locations that I know of things like that are going on. Minneapolis is where it all started with those anti-ICE protests against the federal agents, the federal government, the president's administration. Those are the main things, and some of them it's war too, though those are the main things. The other locations I know of are Los Angeles and New York City, though it hasn't reached the level of intensity that it has in Minneapolis so far. Not that I know of, not that has been reported. There are armed people that are standing, it says standing guard, though they are likely very much considering even using those weapons that they have against the federal agents. So they open fire. It's going to be a total and true insurrection that will likely result in civil war, especially if the other locations do the same. It is a very intense situation there in Minneapolis. The National Guard, I heard, are being deployed to Minneapolis, and the 11th, I think it's the 11th Battalion in the Army, active duty soldiers in the Army are going to be deployed to Minneapolis on top of the National Guard. So it is very likely the Insurrection Act is declared, invoked. So we have all of those things going on. It has been about a week or so since I've been on here, though I may be back on here tomorrow as well, since there will very likely be massive, large events, very serious historical events that could unfold as soon as tonight, and there'll be even further to report on. That's the way things are going these days. So keep on preparing. I always recommend physical assets, though I am not a personal or financial advisor of any kind. It is your own decision to do so, such as gold, silver, land, ammunition, foods such as storable food and freeze dried foods, um, and other physical assets like tools, certain tools, and weapons, even like firearms. So I will be continuing to monitor, especially the situation in Iran and how these riots and the protesters that are there as well in Minneapolis and the other locations. I will be monitoring those situations as well. I'll be watching them very closely, as I always do. I recommend to everyone to do the same. Please like, comment, and subscribe. This YouTube channel has been doing quite well recently for how small the channel is. Thanks for watching. I will be back likely tomorrow. Love, light, and blessings to you all. I hope to see you as soon as potentially tomorrow.